Hi everyone, and welcome to our second speaker of the MDS Speaker Series. I'm here with Deo Mwapinga, who on September 25th presented his research on his dissertation on
the politics of solution to refugees in Tanzania.
At the first ever 2023-2024 MDS Speaker Series. Deo is a PhD candidate at the Department of Political Sciences here at Carleton University, as well as a research assistant at LERRN. So Deo, can you please tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, your personal and academic, and your journey as well?
Okay, thank you. My name is Deo Mwapinga. I'm coming from Tanzania. I'm a doctorate candidate in the Department of Political Science. A bit of background in academia. I have a BA in political science and a master's in political science as well. So I've been a political scientist all my life, and I'm working with Professor James Miller, who is my supervisor. And in my research, I'm looking at the politics of solution for refugees. I'm doing a comparative case study in Tanzania, to which I'm looking at the case of Rwandese refugees who were naturalized in 1980, and I'm comparing it with the Burundians who were naturalized in 2009.
All right, and tell us a little bit more about how and when did you become interested in this field? I know you said you've been a political scientist your whole life, so maybe if we can dial it back down into time and tell us when did you become interested?
Yeah, so in 2012, I was, as a government official, I was appointed to work with refugees in Tanzania. So for the first time I encountered refugees, but also, you know, it turned to develop as a passion to study more. And in 2014 I was part of the team that we were giving citizen certificate to Burundians who were naturalized in 2009. So, you know, from that time I had this passion to study about refugees. It was in the beginning it was more to do with the Burundian refugees. Then later, of course, it came. I added the case of Rwandese, but so it came from my own personal experience of working with refugees, and later on it developed as a passion now to be a scholar, because, you know, eventually after my doctorate, I'm looking forward to joining into academia.
Wow, that's very interesting. And also let's talk about a little bit more about the power that you held during that time when you said you were giving out citizenship. How did you feel?
It was not about giving citizenship. They were naturalized in 2009. I wasn't there. So by 2014, we were giving them citizen certificates. So we were just completing the process. Mm-hmm. So as a part of, because I was working with the local government, so we were working with the NCR, we were working with the people from the ministry, trying to, you know, go through their application as well as handing them a citizen certificate. For me, it was to see them, the joy that they were having, finally they are now calling Tanzanian, because for the Burundians, they've been in Tanzania since 1972. So you're talking about more than 80% of them were born in Tanzania. So the joy, the passion that they're having, you know, the jubilation, you know, the expectation that now they are Tanzanian. So it started from there.
All right, so let's talk a bit about your findings. And first, if you can touch upon as your positionality as a researcher as well. I know for those of you who have attended his event in September, you talked a little bit about your positionality in terms as you said you were married. So let's talk about your positionality a bit.
Yeah, my positionality is very interesting in this case because, you know, at a point, when we were giving citizen certificate to Rwandese, I was a practitioner, I was a government official. Yeah. But now going back again to Tanzania, I was going to study something as a scholar. So at one point I was a practitioner and now I'm a scholar. Trying to balance these two is always tricky, but it's quite interesting because I was trying to go through the same thing I implemented as a government official, but also, being a government official, it means I have some connection. So I'm going through some networks and friends that I've been working with, but also as an insider, as an indigenous, trying to study this who are new naturalized. So it was quite a balance, a tricky balance to maintain between me, Deo as a scholar, and Deo as a practitioner at some point.
Yeah. All right. So how did the people that you interviewed, how did they perceive you? Were they welcoming? How did they treat you?
They are so much welcoming, and I can say because in my research I'm trying to look how they can fully be integrated in the host community in Tanzania. So part of them, it was that the desire for them to see the naturalization be more effective in their life, to have more meaning. So to that passion that we need to talk to Deo, because eventually they're having this hope that perhaps things will be better.
Deo can help them in the future.
Perhaps, because after all, I'm gonna write something. So maybe whether it's the government or UNHCR will have to do something to make them to be more integrated. So so that's okay.
And this actually ties into my following question. What contribution are you hoping that your research will make to the field as well as to the lives of the forcibly displaced?
Yeah, so I'll start with the field because first my research aims to bridge the gap in the politics of solution for refugees, because local integration is more being seen as a de jure or de facto integration. So my research advanced that because it tried to interrogate more about the lived experience of those who are naturalized, apart from leaving it hanging that once you give a citizen certificate to a refugee, then it translates to durable solution. That's one part. But also, it advanced the understanding and in the scholarship of the performance of citizenship. Citizenship should not be understood simply as a legal status, but also the performance, how the lived experience of citizens. So I think my research will be very much useful in terms of policy and the programs that they are aiming into helping refugees.
All right. And for those of us who aren't familiar with these terms, can you please talk about what you just talked about, de facto?
Yeah, so de facto citizenship is an informal kind of citizenship. So the assumption is that when a refugee comes into kind of asylum, once he attains a certain level of economic livelihood, then he's a de facto citizen. And then in the jure, it means the formal. So
legal.
The legal.
Yeah.
So it means, for the case of Tanzania, it means you are applying for citizenship and you are getting a citizen certificate that tells you that you're Tanzanian.
The official paper.
The official paper, yeah. Exactly.
Let's talk a bit about what challenges that you faced during your field research. So you spoke the native language, so things weren't really getting lost in translation, but what did you talked a little bit more about balancing the researcher version of Deo to the government official Deo. So let's talk a bit more about that.
That's a very tricky and a very good question, because this is something always James tried to help me. Because at some point I was a practitioner and now I'm a scholar. So balancing those two are very tricky. So you need to have a strong methodology that will help you to go through those and not shy away. But also, there's this sense of mistrust. Because sometimes when you're interviewing ex-refugees, some of them, they might know you that you're a government official. So it's kind of, what are you doing here again? So there's this kind of mistrust, I can say, but all in all, it was quite an experience, to be honest.
Oh yeah, I'm sure it was. So what did you do to overcome these challenges? How did you present yourself as trustworthy?
So for the case of me being an ex-government official, this is not something that I had to tell those I was interviewing with, unless when I was asked to by them, but unless otherwise it wasn't such an important thing for me. Because,
you didn't have to disclose it.
I didn't have to tell them, that's one. But Second, as I mentioned, is to have a strong methodology, structured questions that you use them when you're interviewing those key respondents.
All right, and what did you learn about yourself as a person and as a researcher in this process?
There's a body of literature that I never knew before, I can say, because I was government official, and sometimes I was thinking that I know everything. So when I came here and start now trying to interrogate the whole process now as a scholar, I realized that there's a body of literature, a lot that I never knew. So this is something that I'm saying is coming to my advantage, because now I'm bringing this perspective from both ends, as a scholar but also as a government official.
You have more of a critical eye formed right now.
Exactly, because now I understand the thinking, but then what was then as a government official, but now as a scholar. So the balance, I think, will be very, very influential in research.
So let's talk about how your research is understood and perceived here versus how it's understood back home, and what are you doing to make it accessible, the diffusion of the research accessible for people to read back home that are non-academics?
So I'm yet to share my research findings to the large audience, but in the first audience that I did present, I had a substantial number of scholars and friends from home who were quite interested to join me via Zoom. It was virtual, it was actually hybrid, and you could tell that their passion and that they wanted to see what I unearthed. But also I can say there's quite a desire, because when I was doing my research, this is something that they asked me, that this kind of research are done by scholars from the global north. They call it white people. So me doing them, it was kind of an orthodox for them, but also it raised some interesting interest for them to know exactly what I'm doing. And for this, for the other side of the global north, here I am. I think there is, for instance, what LERRN is doing is trying to localize the knowledge. Having actors from the global south coming here, or where they are coming with their own research ideas and doing the research. I think this is quite interesting, and trying to change the dominant understanding about research and how do we do it. So I think I hope it will be of great interest to both ends, here and home. But also, finally, you asked me about the sharing of it. Of course, I published my thesis, but perhaps maybe a journal article. But I was trying to, this is something I'm thinking, maybe to write articles in Swahili, in local language, so that it can reach a large audience, perhaps in simple language, maybe
infographics as well.
Infographics, exactly, or having an OPED,
or audio, maybe, who knows?
But to make them in local language, because so that those people will understand.
Of course. So do you have any tips that you'd like to share with future field researchers such as myself, and that are just starting in their masters, for example?
Research I find it to be more of a personal experience from one person to another, but if I have to share my own experience, it's like a safari. If you go to safari, to the national park, you cannot say what, you cannot expect that you're gonna see a lion or an elephant, but you should just go there and explore it. So I had a lot of fun, because my research took me not only to Tanzania but to Geneva as well. So I had this opportunity to work with the UNCR archive, but also to the World Council of Refugees, World Council of Churches, archive. So for me it was such an experience,
Yeah, so keep an open mind, expect the unexpected, and see where it takes you.
Yeah, that's the best way you put it, simply.
So one of the last questions that I have for you is a little bit more tricky. So what is the significance of understanding citizenship as a lived experience? I know we talked about it a little bit, just a few points.
Yeah, so I think its significance, especially I'm talking the case of Tanzania in a post-democratization era where we have multipartyism, where we have the government withdrew from the welfare state. So citizenship as a legal status, or citizenship as a lived experience, tends to unfold on bases which are independent from the legal status. So you might have a citizenship certificate, you might be a citizen like myself as an indigenous, but the experience, the legal experience of you as a citizen cannot translate that you are a real citizen, because you have these limits to joyful rights as a citizen. So I can say in the post-democratization era, citizenship as a legal experience is
All right. Well, thank you so much. How has LERRN supported your research so far? You are a research assistant through LERRN, and LERRN was able to help send you to Tanzania to do this research, correct?
Yeah. So I've been a research assistant with LERRN since my first year of my program. So LERRN has been supporting me financially, which I'm very much grateful for that. But also it supported my field trip to Tanzania as well as to Geneva. So apart from what I was doing in Geneva, but also I was working with another project with other colleagues from LERRN, which is coming out I think next year perhaps. So it would be a project of solution as well, a durable solution in post Second World War in Europe. So LERRN has been supporting me in many ways, not only as a research assistant but also to work in other projects like what I just mentioned.
All right, well, that's all the time that we have for today. Thank you so much, Deo, for your time and your expertise. And this is all for the MGS Speaker Series. Thank you.
Thank you.